This program contains language that is intended for mature or immature audiences. Anyone affiliated with this train wreck of a show assumes no responsibility for its content. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hide the kids and pop the top on a cold one. Coming to you from the extravagant studio at SAA Productions in Charleston, West Virginia, please welcome the inebriated cast of Section 304.
All right, everybody, welcome into the world famous Section 304 podcast. Whether we win or lose, we still booze here on our show, and we'll spend the next hour drinking beers and talking ears. And today I'm joined by Matt Durrett,
yeah, man,
John Crum, and producer Steve, keeping us in line as always. And today on the show, we'll talk about the ass kicking we took yesterday in Norman. And as always, Diddy will hand out his beer of the week if anyone is deserving.
It might be tough this week, but I think I can find somebody in there.
All right. And we're going to be joined in the studio by a special guest. But before we introduce him, we need to address Cameron McGrath, who is missing again this week.
Do you want to sell him out, though?
Well,
sell him out.
You think
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he told you guys. He shared with me he won the tournament last week in Morgantown. He finished, like top two, and then in the Magic the Gathering thing. So he didn't get the sword, but he got like a little knife, like a little collectible side knife thing. He didn't get the sword, but with the second place finish, he won a place in a national tournament down in the Outer Banks. So he spent Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and he's coming back today. He was down in the Outer Banks nerding out at a huge national Magic the Gathering tournament. And if he places in this one, God, let's hope he doesn't. It'd be nice to have him back here. If he places in this one, fellas, it's a trip to Vegas for the World Magic the Gathering Finals. The Worlds.
What do nerds do in Vegas?
I would assume nerds go to all those comic book shops out there and shit, just kind of geek out on sites because they're obviously not into the ladies and the gambling and the drinks. And I just hope he didn't win yesterday.
What have we done here bringing this guy into the show? I mean, he's missing every week. He's on a business trip playing with swords and magic cards.
I didn't know that he was a nerd like that when this all started. That all kind of just came out. Like, I knew he was into Star Trek and everything, which that's fine. I watched the Star Trek movies. I get it. But he's really into like The Hobbit and all that weird shit. Like he, I didn't know he collected swords and knives and played the Magic the Gatherings. And D&D, I guess I knew about. Kind of acceptable. Thought it was weird, but he was a Mountaineer guy at heart. But he's really showing his colors now, skipping out on us to go to the damn Outer Banks for a nerd tournament. I don't know what to say.
Well, we weren't going to let his seat sit empty this week, so I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome a two-time Heisman finalist, Playboy All-American, and College Football Hall of Famer into the studio. Mr. Major Harris is joining us today. Welcome in, Mage, to Section 304. And then Mage isn't a beer drinker, so he's not a drinker, so we'll let that slide, though. But welcome in. And we're going to just talk a little bit about the Oklahoma game, and then the second half of the show, we'll kind of just wrap with Mage about his career at West Virginia and some things that he has going on. Well, let's dive into this fiasco. I think it was a fiasco yesterday. I didn't really take too many positives away, except for Smallwood ran well. I thought the offensive line played like shit. I mean, they had let Skylar Howard get pretty beat up back there.
But that's a lot of Eric Stryker.
Well,
you really can't stop a guy like that. And they should have probably tried to double team him. But there was some times, if you look, you'd see the fullback missed him, or he's so fast off the end. It's kind of like Bruce Irvin, except he's a bigger version of Bruce. And I don't know that you can completely blame the line because Stryker's a freak, man.
Yeah, Wellman missed him on the fumble that got returned for a touchdown. I don't know why we were running play action. It seemed like play action didn't work out for us at all yesterday. I guess where Stryker was so good, the extra time it took to develop that, it seemed like every time Howard ran play action, something bad happened.
Stryker was really good, and you can say the offensive line, but you also have to look. There was some balls that Howard threw. You could tell he was a little rattled out in Norman, his first big road start. He's sailing some balls. He's underthrowing some guys. It was there. We could have taken that game yesterday, but there was some miscues and some missteps, and just overall some mistakes that cost us that game.
Well, and Mage, I'll throw this one at you. When you're in that position, you're a first-year starter, and you're on the road at Oklahoma. I mean, you saw him, and you saw Skylar play yesterday. They were coming at him, and he was under. What's that like? And what do you think it was like for him yesterday? What did you see out of him on the road for the first time as a starter?
You know what? I didn't think he played that bad. First time on the road playing in a big game like that, nationally televised, both teams undefeated. I just think it'd take a couple games to get adjusted to the speed of the game more than anything. I thought a couple passes he threw and the defensive back recovered on the ball a little bit. So now as a quarterback, when you see that and it go through your mind, it's like, man, I'm off today. But really, it's just a timing. And I think with that game, I think it was a learning experience, and I think he's going to play better this week.
And that was some of the things, and I think we even talked about it yesterday watching the game, was and we've talked about it weeks in the past, the timing aspect for him is still not there. It doesn't look like it's there yet. But then when you think about it, I don't consider his starts last year as starts because the system wasn't designed around him. So realistically, this is his fourth start as a true starter. And I think it's going to, it's going to take some time for the game for him to catch up with the game.
To come back from down 24-7 and cut it to where we're back in the game and we have a chance, that should tell you something about this team, that they didn't just go lay down. They're never completely out of it. And like I said, I think yesterday he had the deep ball to Shelton Gibson down the left sideline. He hung it up a little bit and let the guy get a chance to bat it down. He throws the pick on the it looked like a post, and he just didn't see the safety laying back there, and they get the interception there. It's just a couple of mistakes here and there. And there's a lot of positives you can take out of that game yesterday. I know the score looks bad, but Russell Shell ran really, really hard. That guy looked good yesterday. And the defense was on the field a lot, and they played well, minus some of the secondary mistakes. That's the first time we've seen busted coverage with those guys all year. And I have to believe that those guys are good enough that's going to be corrected, and you're not going to see that, again. The tight end touchdown, you see Petway's on the tight end when he comes off the line, and then he drops, and it was Carl Joseph, I believe, slid back to safety help deeper in the end zone, and the tight end's just wide open on a little post. So you got to think they watch film, they correct that, and this team's okay, man. If you get a split in October, if you go 2 for 2 in October with these games they have, this team is fine. I'm not concerned about the team. I'm more concerned about the fan base and the shit that you read after the game with people calling for Howard's head and they're back on Dana again. Come on, people. Just pump the brakes.
I was going to say the defense played well in spots, but the blown coverages. It seems like when we made a mistake yesterday, it was magnified times 100. We had 3 or 4 blown coverages. One of them, we cut the game to 27-24, and I think Dylan bid. They kind of faked a wide receiver screen and hit that guy long. Then Chestnut bid in the first half real bad on the Sterling Shepard. Is that his name, Sterling Shepard?
I think that's his name.
Anytime we made mistakes, it was magnified so much. But if you look at what we did against their running game, which absolutely crushed us last year, we held them to 107 yards rushing.
We were in the backfield a decent amount, with quarterback pressure.
Yeah.
You don't want to bang on I know they gave up 44 points, but some of that was off of turnovers. And then our field position in the first half was
horrible.
Was brutal. We started inside. I think we averaged starting on our own 10.
Yeah, it was not good.
You got to go conservative when you're coming out of your own end zone. There's some positives, there's some negatives. I would say one thing that if you read about, I guess we were kind of jawing before the game, and maybe we were a little overconfident. I know I was overconfident if you look at how I bet yesterday. But a lot of positives in my opinion. There are some negatives. There's some things you got to correct, but I think we're going to be all right.
You have to think that's the first time you've seen those busted coverages. But that's what a good team does to you. They make you pay. And that's what Oklahoma is. Oklahoma is not Liberty. They're not Georgia Southern. They're not Maryland. They're not young. They're experienced. They got a really good quarterback back there in Baker Mayfield. They got athletes all over the place. That's what a good football team does to you. They make you pay. They capitalize on your mistakes, and they make you pay. And you've learned that. We're not in a situation where you can make those mistakes anymore because these teams in the Big 12 are going to make you pay. You can't make that mistake against Trayvon Boykin and some of these guys we got coming in because it's just they're going to burn you.
One of the positives I did take away from the defense was the correction in the second half. And although there was plenty of busted coverages in the first half, in the second half I thought the defense kind of tightened it up a little bit. I mean, there was just the one long ball that got loose on the bad coverage again. But after that, I mean, the defense put the offense in position to come back, make that comeback. So, but and to address one thing that Durrett just brought up was, and that's one thing I hate about social media and even people that have posted on some of our stuff. As soon as there's a bad game or a kid makes a mistake, these guys aren't getting paychecks. And I try to emphasize that, although we discuss things and kind of give our brutal, honest truth about things, but just straight up saying a kid sucks. And
they've completely sold out on Howard now. Everyone yesterday has sold out on this kid. I wasn't.
But they didn't sell out on him when he ran it in for 50 yards.
Exactly.
I'm sure Mage can attest to this. The most popular guy on the team is always the backup quarterback.
Yeah, but everyone's. When I talk about William Crest, everybody gives me shit and says, "Oh, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy. He's not ready," and that's all I've heard. But now Howard goes out and has one mediocre game, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it's Willie time." Well, how is it Willie time now, but it wasn't Willie time at the beginning of the year? You can't. That's the problem, and the fan base just kind of bails real quick, and they'll be back. They'll be back. We'll get a big win, and they'll all be back, and they'll be swinging from Scholar's satchel down there, and it's crazy to me to see these people just sell him out that quick. The guy's completing 70% of his balls. Yesterday, I think he was at 59% completions. He threw some ugly passes, but you're in Norman. I don't know what that stadium holds, but it's sold out. It's loud. It's rowdy. You're in an atmosphere that's new to him, and you can't just sell him out. You have to think the next time he has the opportunity to throw that deep ball to Gibson, it's going to look like the one he threw against Maryland. It's going to hit him right in his hands in stride, and we're going to be celebrating the touchdown.
Well, how about the zone read on the 4th and 2 that turned into a 50-yard touchdown?
I like that zone read.
That was great.
That was huge. That goes back to, we've talked about it before with Pat and Steve and those guys. They ran a lot of zone read there. I think Howard is capable of running that zone read and putting it in the guy's stomach, pulling it out when he feels like he can get down the field and make something out of it. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little more zone read, but I'm not a coach. I'm just an armchair quarterback on Sundays.
Well, in Mage, I'll ask you to answer this one. When we're talking about the pressure quarterbacks have and the target, talk a little bit about that. Obviously you're aware when you're out there that people are watching you. Can you?
Well, I think that young quarterback, I kind of compared to golf. You coming up on Sunday. Even though you know what to do, but standing over that ball to, hit the green or make that putt, it's added pressure. Then you throw into the equation a young quarterback, big stage. You can get a veteran quarterback. Guys started 3 years, had a problem going in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
With that defense. So overall, I thought he played good. I think it's a good learning experience. I think the fans getting on him a little bit, I don't think that might be bad because it's going to show what type of player he is or what type of quarterback he is. A little bit of pressure, you know what I mean? Hopefully he don't crack under the pressure, you know what I mean? He can overcome it this week. But I think overall, I thought we played good. We kept trying to come back on them, then we'd make a mistake here and there, and then they'd take advantage of it because that's what good teams do.
Well, Dana, in his press conference yesterday, put it squarely on him, and we'll take a second and listen to what he had to say. Excuse him. I guess he was a little nervous yesterday. He's like tapping. Last week he was, somebody called into one of the other shows and said, if you played a drinking game with Dana's throat clears, you would be lit up by the end of his interview. This week he's tapping on the.
I don't know if he's nervous. He's probably pissed off.
I think he was pretty angry after the game.
We'll take a second here and listen to what Dana Holgorsen had to say about yesterday's game.
I thought we had a good halftime, and thought our assistant coaches did a good job making some adjustments. The guys were in a good place as we went out into the second half. We knew it was going to be a 4-quarter game, so I commend our players for for getting out there in the second half and playing. We had a great third quarter. Comes down to their defense was better than me. I'm the one calling the plays. Just didn't do a very good job in the fourth quarter calling plays the way that we need to in order to beat these guys. So this one falls on me. Take some questions.
General thoughts on just secondary play? Seemed to just play a little bit better times within some blown coverage.
Ours?
Yes.
Yeah, didn't play great in the first half. We got beat on some double moves and some fake screens and whatnot. Got to be a little bit more disciplined than that. And I thought we did much better in the second half. Yeah, that one drive was tough. We had a lot of momentum and had them pinned back, and they scored in 3 plays, made some plays. They got receivers that can play. So, better to get used to it because it's going to happen again and again and again.
In particular, what you're critiquing yourself on is it maybe being a little bit too aggressive in the fourth quarter, not.
Yeah, I mean, there's one point in the third quarter where I thought I was getting a little too conservative. So, started taking a few chances. Got it to 27-24, but then they came back and scored again. So it felt like I needed to continue to attack. And when you're reckless like that against these guys, it's tough.
And obviously he put the whole thing on him, and he liked the way the guys played in the second half. And I think he's aware that they played pretty piss poor in the first half, and we're able to kind of come back in the second half and do some things.
Would you expect him to put the blame on anybody else, though?
Well, you know what? People sit and get on him about a lot about the things that he does. And if you look at it early in his career, he didn't take the responsibility sometimes. He would in his first got there, he would say, well, this unit didn't do this or this unit didn't do that.
I think then he's kind of still more an offensive coordinator role. So
But
he wasn't used to being the guy to have to step up there and accept that. But now he realizes he's a head coach. And I think he's got a pretty good thing going up there. And I honestly, man, a 2-2 split in October would be huge. It would be huge. And I hope people don't bail out on him and start the fire hose deal again. And it's just unnecessary. And the guy's a good coach.
Just one loss. I mean, who thought we were going 12-0?
Well, nobody did. But the one good thing, though, I don't know if you guys saw it this morning, the Oklahoma State game has been announced for a 7:30 start tomorrow.
Is that good?
Or next week.
Is that good, though?
That's good for I think that's good for the fans.
I mean, that seems like another up and back I'm going to make. Somebody's going to drive me this time. I'm not driving.
Well, one thing I wanted to kind of dive into, and I've got a handout here on the show today. Let's hand this out. This is Matt Durrett's parlay card from yesterday. Let's take a look at this. Wait, before you say anything, you go on and tell our listeners on Facebook, hey, if you want to win the money train, you want to get on that money train, here's the bets for the week. Now, the top one's cut off. He picked West Virginia yesterday.
I did too.
And then it's cut off here on this sheet. But he claims that he scratched it when he turned it in. So I'm going to give him that one. So let's explore his picks yesterday. And if anybody...
But stop. I didn't say if you want to win money, bet these. You should have bet opposite of me. Everybody knows that shit, dude. So I'm the guy who had the longest cold streak in possibly the history of gambling. So when I put this up and I say, if you want to get on the money train, and I show you my circles,
bet literally
circle opposite. There's a lot of intricacies here, Lou. There's a lot of ins and outs and what have yous when it comes to betting.
Have you seen a Bronx Tale?
I have.
You're mush.
Yeah, you are mush. if you bet exactly the opposite. And if you bet exactly the opposite of him yesterday, you're rolling in the dough. This guy puts up a shitball parlay card. He literally lost every game.
It wasn't pretty.
He took Georgia.
Should have won in between the hedges. Mark Richt, you really let me down. Embarrassing
he took Mississippi.
Performance. Ole Miss, I don't know what happened. I guess the swamp got to him.
Tennessee.
That wasn't my pick. I took bad advice on that.
And Notre Dame.
He's the anti-Holgorsen.
Let me say this. You know why I picked Notre Dame? Reverse juju, baby. Brian Day and Chris Moss. Eat shit. You're welcome for that loss. I put the bad juju on Notre Dame on purpose because I'm tired of you two always trolling us about the Mountaineers.
So next week, if he posts his parlay card, literally put in your card exactly the opposite.
Maybe I got an NFL card in my pocket that I'm about to post. You don't know. You can't stop me.
Well, let me see it. Let me see it before you go, so I can just draw up the exact opposite.
It was a weird day in collegiate football yesterday, and say what you want.
It's really not that weird. What made you think?
Looking at it right out of the gate, this is the lock. I still think it was a lock for me to win some money. Ole Miss just still hyped up over the Bama win. Georgia, I can't explain it there. Tennessee, I was talked into after I'd been drinking. I don't like Tennessee at all. I'd been drinking and someone talked me into that game. And then Notre Dame.
You need to own it like Holgorsen did, man.
Yeah, man. That was shit.
It was a bad card. It was a bad week. I'll be back. Don't worry. I'll be back. I'll post it next Thursday for you.
All right. Well, like I said, if he posts it, make sure you check it out and bet the total opposite.
And when you lose from betting the opposite and I'm winning money, don't cry to me.
All right. You heard it there from Mush. All right. Well, unfortunately, this week we don't have a Dell Sparks Collection prediction winner.
So that means I win the photo, right?
No, you do not win the photo.
Is it Crumb's turn to win the photo?
I guess so. Everyone picked over. I was even going to try to see if anyone selected the score under, and no one did. Everyone had West Virginia winning, and they weren't even close to the points that we put up. Everybody had 30, 40 points up. So there's no winner this week in the Dell Sparks Collection prediction game, so make sure you get your predictions in on Facebook this week. And we're going to go take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to spend the rest of the show. We're going to put this Oklahoma game to bed, and we're going to spend the rest of the show chatting with the Hall of Famer, Major Harris, and we're going to get his insight and get some stories from his days at West Virginia. We'll be right back. Do you love West Virginia? Check out Home Furnishings by Bear Wood Company. Log into bearwoodcompany.com and put West Virginia pride in your decorating design. The Bear Wood Company, always home. For the best in vintage advertising signs, World War II collectibles, collectible vinyl records, and coins, check out our friends at Red Fox Antiques and Collectibles in Scott Depot, right off I-64, exit 40. This isn't your grandma's antique shop. This is a mantique shop. For more information, check them out on Facebook or give them a call, 304-757-9589. The Dell Sparks Collection. Dell's documented WVU sports for over 30 years and features the greatest moments in Mountaineer history. Check out his magic moments from Major Harris, Pat White, Tavon Austin, and so many more. For all of your favorite Mountaineer moments printed and framed, visit dellsparks.com or give him a call, 304-296-6004. The Griffith Law Center, PLLC, a Charleston-based law firm servicing the entire state of West Virginia and parts of southern Kentucky, specializing in serious injuries, wrongful death, and wrongful termination. The Griffith Law Center. Now you have a friend that's a lawyer. Call today for a free consultation at 304-345-8999 or give them a visit on the web at protectingwv.com. For all of your web and graphic design, go with the best. Go with our friends at Loggerhead Designs. They're true graphic professionals. Anything from business cards to high-end websites. They can handle it all. The next time you need your ads to really pop, head over to loggerheaddesigns.com or call 910-541-0143. And welcome back to Section 304, episode, this is number 6 this week.
Yep.
Moving right along, folks. Well, like I said before we took the break, we're going to put that Oklahoma game to bed, and we're going to spend the rest of the show talking with Mage. First, Mage, thanks for getting up this morning, coming in and joining us here. We've been friends for about 5 years now, and we don't really talk. We usually talk about ball games and stuff. So this is really going to be the first time I've had the opportunity to kind of dive in and ask a whole lot of questions about your time at West Virginia. And I guess first, when you think about, and you've probably, and I don't know how often you do this because you always seem pretty humble when somebody does make comments or ask questions. But when you think about the standard that you set at West Virginia and the quarterbacks, when you come in, I mean, a lot of times that's the thing that people say is, well, he's no Major Harris or he's no Pat White. But what do you think about the standard that you set at West Virginia from your time there?
Well, first of all, I'm going to thank y'all for inviting me here. You know what I mean? I appreciate it. I don't look at it like that. When I played, I just was out there having fun, trying to help the team to win. And then after your career is over with, then people, I guess, can use your career as a measuring stick to, to measure up against other players and stuff like that. But at the time, I was just having fun, to be honest. I never really looked at like, well, I'm going to be compared and stuff like that. But, when I hear people like mention my name or something like that, then, it kind of make me reminisce on my times, playing up at West Virginia. But I really don't get caught up in that.
You had a lot of big games. You got a lot of big plays. In your career at WVU, what's the biggest play or the play that stands out to you that you made on that field?
Well, when I look back at my career, I would have to say the Penn State game. And then once you look at with the things that happened, for one, Coach Paterno, all-time winningest college coach. I mean, to beat him at home on national TV, go on to play for the national championship. I think when I look back on that, using my career from after my career's over, looking back, you can't ask for nothing better than that, because I can always say, well, we beat the winningest coach in college football, you know what I mean?
Stomped him.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And from the standpoint of they always had our number, you know what I mean? And to beat them, I think that was probably the biggest highlight of my career. Now, if we would have won a national championship, then I think that would have been, the biggest moment. But, when I look back at that Penn State game.
Speaking of the Penn State game, we would have to ask you about the play. Could you kind of go into that? What happened on that play? Like what you were thinking, how that all kind of went down?
Well, it was funny. It was, I remember they, because guys run the play, they run the plays in back when I played. Now I guess they give them signals and stuff like that. So what had happened was a guy ran a play into me and he told me to play. So he'd tell me we'd go in the huddle and, call the play. And when he brought it into me, the 25-second clock was running. So he told me to play. Now we going in the huddle and I tell him to play and say break. Now I'm looking at the 25-second clock and it's going down to 10 seconds. So I'm like, hurry up, y'all, come on, let's hurry up. Because, I didn't want to call a timeout. So we running up to the line. I remember it was an option play, but I just forgot which way it went. You know what I mean? So I just said, well, I'm just going to go to the field. You know what I mean? So I opened up to the field, and it was really into the boundary. And I was just trying to salvage the play, and, you know what I mean? I got around to one dude, and I just, kept running.
So possibly the greatest play in Mountaineer history is a busted play.
You know what? But see, I kind of look at it almost like they don't do it as much now, like boots and stuff like that, where you might fake it and go the other way and the whole team. So I kind of looked at it like that. It was a thing where everybody went one way, so the defense is thinking that's where it's going. And you know what I mean? I just went the other way.
The Penn State game, talk about the hype leading into that game. Because, the hype is bigger now because everybody has games on television and there's so many there's Fox Sports and ESPN. But back then it was, you may have been on local television on a replay, but CBS was the game, like in ABC, the nationally televised game. There was a ton of hype going into that game. Do you remember like the buildup of that game, especially after Bino Cook comes out and says this West Virginia team's going to go 11-0? But it just seemed like the hype, and I was just, I was a 12-year-old kid at the time. The hype was just huge going into that game, and even as a kid, I could kind of see that. Do you remember anything about that? Yeah,
the one thing, the year before that, I remember we played Syracuse up at Syracuse. They was undefeated, and we almost beat them up there to, to kind of keep them from going undefeated. And I think at that moment, and we knew we had a lot of guys coming back, I think we knew we had a pretty good team because, anytime you almost beat undefeated team at their place. You know what I mean? Had them on the ropes, so to speak. Then we knew going into the next year that we had a good team. And I think that's why Bino Cook said what he said, because he like, man, they got a lot of returning starters and stuff like that. So we knew that we had a good team. And then win a couple games and then face Penn State at home. I mean, the timing was perfect to face them at home. Now, it might have been a little different. We faced them up at Penn State. But to face them at home and knew the type of team we had, we knew going into the game, we wasn't being cocky. We said we can beat them. You know what I mean? We really felt that we can beat Penn State that year. And when we came out the gates, it just seemed like everything was working right. I can honestly say for one half, as long as I've been playing football, I've never been that perfect. I mean, even though, you throw incompletions and stuff like that, but for one half, couldn't write up a better script. Right before the half, going to half, handed to Andre Johnson, he take it 50-something yards for a touchdown. I mean, everything just went right for one half.
This is probably going to be Penn State, but what's the most raucous, the best environment you ever played in college football, where you came out and you're on the field before the game and you're just looking around and you think, wow?
Well, to be honest, the thing that stands out the most for me is the first game when I played at West Virginia. I got redshirted. And you in the tunnels, like, I'm used to playing before, probably the biggest crowd, 3,000. But now, I come to West Virginia and now you're in the tunnel and it's like this is a funny story. They don't really tell you what to do. You just automatically should know. When you run out the tunnel, Coach Nealon lead us out. But I remember the first game, I never forget it. We in the tunnel and the Mountaineer man blew the thing and one of the freshmen ran out before Coach Nealon. Coach Nealon chasing him, you know what I mean? And grabbed his face mask and we all running out on the field. So it's funny because nobody tell you, okay, they're going to shoot the gun. Coach Nealon run out, you run out behind him. The guy was so pumped up, he ran out before Coach Nealon. Coach Nealon chased him down. I'll never forget that. But I would honestly say, when you in that tunnel and you hear, let's go Mountaineers, I mean, to be honest, I would have to say at home, you know what I mean? Your first time, that experience is just crazy.
One of the added weapons that came in that year for you was Reggie Rembert. Can you talk a little bit about him? I've always said I thought he was the Randy Moss before Randy Moss because he was so big and fast. Can you talk about what Reggie brought and how you guys were able to hook up for some big plays? I
think Reggie, he definitely he kind of put us on that path to where we can play for a national championship. We had great receivers, but we didn't have that one game breaker. You know what I mean? And Reggie, once we got it, he made my job a lot easier, to be honest, because Reggie can be covered. You throw it up, he's going to catch it. You got a guy 6'5", 6'6", run a 4.3 40. I mean, that's impressive. You know what I mean? And I think he was probably like the icing on the cake from an offensive standpoint that we needed to really get us over the hump.
I was going to say, you were talking about your first year in West Virginia. How did Pitt let you get out of Pittsburgh?
Well, Pitt was going through a coaching change. Foles Faziel got fired, and see, people don't talk about things like that. When you're being recruited by a school, and then the coach is on the hot seat, and say even if you commit to him and he get fired, that put players in limbo. That's something that really you don't hear them talking about. And even if you go to a school, you got a scholarship under one coach, and he get fired, that could put you in limbo too. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of little things like that play a part in guys' success at different universities and stuff like that based on the coaching. Foles got fired. They was recruiting me, but, I didn't know who the new coach was. But I liked the West Virginia. To be honest, I came to football camp down here and remember meeting Coach Nealon, and it's not far from home. So even if it wasn't a coaching change at Pitt, I probably still would have came to West Virginia.
We would be I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't ask you about it. The Notre Dame game, a lot of people think the hit laid on you was a dirty hit and you were kind of targeted because at the time you were a game changer in that national title game and the Notre Dame players knew that. What would you say to people who, just to kind of clear it up and get your perspective on it, what would you say about that hit?
Well, it wasn't dirty. Going in every game in football, you can get hurt or guys might be out to try to, but, knock you out the game, so to speak, just like in boxing. So no, it wasn't a dirty hit. I think it was more of the layoff of going from the last game to a bowl game, probably have a month off. And as a quarterback, you ain't getting hit. So it's just like in boxing, you might need that first hit to get you going after, you know what I mean, being laid off, going from one fight to the next. I think I was more cold to being hit, and the guy hit me low, and I was relaxed, and I was just falling, and everybody's so aggressive, the guy jumped on my back. So it really wasn't a dirty hit. I think it was more me not being hit during that whole period from the last game to the bowl game. I was kind of cold. Now, if I could have probably got hit and didn't get hurt, then I think I would have been able to, you know what I mean, been ready to rock and roll. But it just caught me at a cold point, and it was a good hit, clean hit. It was, you know, one of those things. And it's funny because years later, I remember watching Colt McCoy play in a bowl game, and he kind of got hit like on the first or second play of a bowl game, messed his shoulder, but I think it was his right shoulder, and that kind of reminded me of what I went through when in the Fiesta Bowl game.
And you heard it here first, folks. That was a dirty hit. He said that was a dirty, stinking hit by the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You know, leading up to that game, and obviously you guys knew you guys were going to play in the Fiesta Bowl before the Syracuse game. And I don't know I think you know this. I don't know if these guys know it. My very first Mountaineer game was the '88 Syracuse game. We played for the St. Albans Eastern Red Raiders, and every year they reward the 12-year-olds with a trip to Mountaineer Field. Just so happened, my year falls, and we get to go to the Syracuse game, the '88 Syracuse game, which is a historical game. And I remember being there, and just that place was going nuts. And one of the things I'll vividly remember is looking up in the student section. You probably didn't see it. The student section changed so much since then. They had a blow-up doll in the student section, and it was getting passed around. And I'm looking at this thing going, what in the hell is it? I mean, at some point, like some dude had it sitting beside him, and like he had a scarf around his neck, and they would take it. But that place was rocking and rolling, man. And obviously, Coach McPherson had went undefeated the year before, and they were here to ruin your perfect season. When you're sitting at 10-0 and you already know you're going to the Fiesta Bowl, was there any thought maybe hopefully we don't relax and get beat here tonight?
Well, you know, I think timing play a part in stuff like that, because if we play them up at Syracuse, you know, it might be a different ball game. But they have the last game at home, you know, you have no excuses, you know what I mean? And just like the year before when they beat us, you know what I mean? I think home field advantage can definitely help you in pressure situations like that. Just like with the game with Oklahoma, I think the pressure, it fell in their hands, so to speak. You know what I mean? We started committing more turnovers. So home field advantage definitely play a difference or a big part in, you know what I mean, turning the tables for a game.
Playboy All-American. I gotta ask just because I want to know.
I
want to know.
Yeah.
Did you get to go to the mansion?
No, we was down in Florida, and you know we seen some of the girls, but no, we didn't go to the mansion. But it was like, I guess, some girls around.
How disappointing is that to you to be named a Playboy All-American? And I know you got to think like I think. If I'm named Playboy All-American, I'm thinking I'm going to the mansion. They're going to throw a party. They're going to do this photo shoot, and then maybe we get to mix in with some of the bunnies afterward and have give you a complete run of the pool and the zoo and the ladies. And, you know, how disappointing was that to you to not get to hit the Playboy Mansion?
Well, no, you know, I think, you know, Coach Nealon was down there too. I think he was more excited. No, you know what, to be honest, you really didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? You're just happy to be on the team, and then you down there with like other All-Americans, so to speak. You know, me and Emmitt Smith was roommates. I remember, you know, running into all the guys. Then it's funny because this team is before the season, and then y'all play the season. So now you get to see guys like, man, you know what I mean, like Emmitt Smith on TV playing that year. So me and him became good friends. And it's funny because I got pictures of me and Emmitt Smith, and years later when I show people the pictures, you know, of me and Emmitt Smith, they say, yeah, that's the closest you're going to get to $1 million.
Well, you know, and speaking of, we've talked about this, and we've often said you were 10 or 15 years before your time. Because back then, now the quarterbacks, they probably show video of you, and this is what we need. But there weren't a lot of guys that could run the ball like you could, and not a lot of guys that could throw and run like you could. you talk about the $1 million. Do you think you were 15 years before your time and that affected your draft status just because of the timing of it?
No, you know what, to be honest, I think a lot of times you got to look at it from a coach's standpoint. If you're a coach and you run a certain type of offense, and then when you think of the NFL, I think Doug Flutie kind of got screwed a little bit when he came out. You know what I mean? The way he played and stuff like that. That a lot of times it's not what you're doing is the coach's philosophy, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So if you got a coach that just want a straight 6'5" drop back quarterback, you know what I mean? That's what he's looking for. So I think it's more that the coach's philosophy. Then you might get one renegade coach that say, well, I'm going to try this or try that. You know what I mean? So I think it's more that than anything.
Could you imagine yourself playing in an offense like what Chip Kelly and Rich Rodriguez have brought to football now? I mean, what kind of numbers do you think you'd put up in an offense like that where it's an air raid and they give you kind of the ability to freelance back there and this is what every coach is looking for? I mean, how would you see yourself performing in one of those?
Well, you know, I think the offense they run now, it inflates the numbers. You know what I mean? Where a good game for a quarterback back when I played, you throw 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? That's pretty good. Now, I mean, guys is throwing 6 and 7. You know what I mean? Like it ain't nothing. Right. So it's a different type of ball game now. You know what I mean? I remember back when I played, Andre Ware played for Houston. Mm-hmm. They was running a run and shoot. I mean, throwing 7 touchdowns in a game, that was not. You know what I mean? I'm happy to get 2. You know what I mean? So it's a different game. But one thing I will say though, I'm surprised that they kind of getting away from the option offense. And the reason I say that, when you up under center and you open up and you get that fullback coming in, you can give it to him or fake it. I mean, that's big because the lineman is standing up blocking and you don't know if he got that ball. Whereas now with the spread, you can kind of see it a little bit more to fake. Right. And that's why I always say, like Army, Navy, Air Force, they stick to that old option game because it keeps them in the game where they can compete with all the big schools.
You mentioned Andre Ware. Could you kind of talk about being a Heisman finalist and what that was like?
You know, one thing is funny. I think when you're up at the Heisman and when you're sitting there, they kind of cater to who's going to win the Heisman. So a lot of times where everybody might be thinking the guys are surprised who's going to win, no, you kind of really know. Like when we was up there, they was catering to his mom. Hey, we'll take you here. So everybody kind of know who's going to kind of win the Heisman. You know what I mean? But it was a good experience. I was up there twice. I got to meet Troy Aikman the one year, Rodney Peete. Then Emmett was up there the next year. Andre Ware wasn't there. They had a game, so he wasn't there, but his mom was there. So you get a chance to meet all these guys. And a lot of the guys, they become close friends then once they go to the pros. You know what I mean? They kind of stay in contact or be tight. The way my career went, I was tight with them, but then I didn't go high in the draft. They said, man, he might want some money, man. Get him away from me. No, but it was a good experience, though. You know, when I look back on my career at West Virginia, best time of my life, I wouldn't change anything. The only thing I would say I'll probably change is I wish we would have won the national championship. Other than that, you know what I mean, I enjoyed my time. And, yeah.
You know, you were talking a little bit about the Heisman and going to Florida for the play. I mean, back then there were a lot of different individual awards, and you got to go to a lot of places. Can you talk about the friendships that you kind of developed? Like you were saying, you've roomed with Emmitt Smith, and let's talk about being able to hang out with some of those guys, you know, preseason and postseason, and then especially now when you look back at it and somebody says, "Well, I roomed with Emmitt Smith at the Playboy All-American." I mean, talk about you.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that sticks out. I remember as a sophomore going up to the Heisman and meeting Troy Aikman. He's huge. People don't realize how big. I thought when I first saw Troy, I thought he was a tight end. I mean, seriously, he's about 6'5". I mean, huge. And the thing when I look back on, you know, just the whole thing with Troy, that's impressive to me. You think about this. He went to Oklahoma at first.
Right.
And they was going to change that whole system to fit him. You know, I mean, they probably run the option a little bit, but, you know, they was really a wishbone. And for him to go there, that go to show you how good he was. Then he ended up getting hurt. Then he transferred to UCLA. And then he went on, you know, he had a hell of a pro career. But that go to show you how good he really was.
Right.
because to go to Oklahoma, they're going to change the system to fit you. You know what I mean? Think about that.
Right.
He ended up getting hurt, then Jamel Holloway ended up coming in, and they won a national championship with Jamel. But that go to show you how good Troy Aikman was. Transferred and go to the pros and his pro career. So just to see things like that, I mean, Emmitt Smith, all-time leading rusher, you kind of, playing with some of these guys that go to the Hall of Fame. I remember my first big game, kind of like when we played Oklahoma just now, played at Ohio State, played against Chris Spielman. And it's wild because Wiley, linebacker for us, to me, he kind of reminded me of Chris Spielman all over the field. I'm talking about Grant Wiley. I mean, and to me, he was probably the best linebacker I've seen come out of West Virginia. You know what I mean? It's just as far as sideline to sideline. And it kind of reminded me of Chris Spielman. And I remember Chris Spielman was good. Now, I'm a young quarterback, so it's things I'm not seeing that as a veteran linebacker he's seeing. Chris was able to focus in on my snap count. I remember we had a 4th and inches, and I remember he dove over the center, you know what I mean, and got me. And just as a player, you grow with experience. Chris Spielman, he was just, when I look back at when we played him, at the time, you're not thinking like that, but years later, you see different things and like, man, I see why he was that good, because he was a student of the game. He just can pick up on little things that young linebackers and stuff wouldn't pick up on.
How much trash did Spielman talk?
You know what? I think his actions spoke more. He was more, patting his players on the head and stuff like that. He didn't really talk too much smack. You know what I mean?
Who, I've asked a lot of the other guys this, in your day, who was the biggest trash talker from an opposing team that you ever dealt with?
Well, you know what's funny? The team that I thought was the talked the most smack and probably was was Notre Dame. You would think, being that it's Notre Dame, you know what I mean, that they under control and
little Catholic kids.
Yeah. But you remember in that same year they got in a fight in the tunnels, I think with Miami or somebody. Yeah. I would have to say them. I mean, when we was in the tunnel with them before the game, and it was, I'll tell you what's funny, when you in a tunnel with a Notre Dame, and you can see the difference in, because everybody on that team is all Americans. You know what I mean? Right. Think about it. So when you're in a tunnel with them, it's like you can see big guys, everybody big. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like we in a tunnel with them, we can stack up with them, but they're deep. I mean, they had one big guy, the guy after him big, guy after him big. We might have this guy big, the next one big, then we start getting little. It ain't like that. They all big. Right. You know what I mean?
What if anything, what kind of pep talk did Coach Neyland give you guys before you went out to play against Notre Dame?
Well, like watching film, we thought that, you know what I mean, we can beat them, I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean? We thought that they had a good team. And one thing I learned from that game that I never really thought about before is the surface of the field. We played on turf. They played on grass. So when you playing football, I never paid attention to that. But when you in stiff competition, that makes a difference. A team that plays on grass, because now they got an advantage because they used to playing on grass. And it only really show up a lot of times is when you in stiff competition. Like if we play Temple on grass, you know what I mean? Yeah, right. We ain't really worried about it. But in stiff competition, it definitely makes a difference.
We talk a lot about that 88 team, and a lot of times the first thing people say is Major Harris, but talk about that offensive line. I mean, you guys were stacked across the front. I believe it was all 5-year seniors. I could be wrong, but can you just talk about those guys and what that type of offensive line means to the success of an undefeated 88 team?
It's big. I mean, that's what I'm saying about timing. That played the biggest part, to be honest, because you got 5 guys. In a sense, like we going up against teams where they might have sophomores. Now here it is, you got 5 veteran seniors. That's big. Now they can use really technique or just their experience to really beat guys. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, people don't look at it like that. But yeah, that was huge. It started up front. You know what I mean? And I just think that when we played Notre Dame, I really thought, we really thought we would beat them. But we came out of the gates. We got guys hurt early in the game, and they beat us. I ain't using no excuse or taking that away from them. They were good. I mean, they had players, Ricky Waters, you know what I mean, Rocket Ismail, Tony Rice. I mean, defensively, they had some big name guys. And, I think it was just a game that, that they won, no excuses. They beat us.
One thing, and also too, is the defensive side of that ball. Bo, Bo was in last year, and we talked a little bit about that. Those guys had a pretty good defense. Talk about the defense. Bo Orlando, Renardo Turnbull. I think that defense was underestimated as far as historically defenses.
Yeah, I think that they kind of get overlooked because the way we was beating teams or beating some of the teams, we might blow teams out, not realizing that defense is really, whenever we had to get the ball, they got the ball for us. Even in that Notre Dame game, even though we were struggling, they kept us in the game enough for us to make a comeback. We just didn't make that comeback. Yeah, I think, and you can look at the pro career. Bo had a successful year in the pros, Ronaldo. Some of our linebackers, I think, kind of got overlooked, but we had some good linebackers. Alvoy, defensive back, he had a hell of a pro career. So we had a lot of guys. Big Fox, Mike Fox, he played in the pros. David Grant was gone the year before that. But I think the defense was overlooked, just like, to be honest, now with the offense that we kind of run here, where the defense get overlooked. But I really think the defenses really came on in the last 2 years here, to keep us in a lot of games.
What, looking at these teams today, how crazy is it to think, these guys today, you back in your day, athletically, you were a freak. But now you see these guys today, and it's just kind of the norm to see guys who can run and throw and 6-7 receivers and guys who just, you throw it up and they go get it. How crazy is it to you how much the game has changed from your time to today?
Well, the one thing they talk about a lot nowadays is getting the guy in space. Back when we played, you never heard that. Guys is out there trying to do their thing. But now they didn't broke the game down to where they trying to get guys out in space. The game it's getting more like everybody's getting more on top of the game. Whereas at one point it was like a secret to certain teams how to do things. Now it's out there in the public where everybody's doing it. It's just like you take New England in the pros, how they lined up and put the tackle, but he was a tight end. You know what I mean? Certain coaches is ahead of the game, so to speak, and other teams is catching up just with the 2 tight end system they running now. So I think that it's more of the coaching that kind of lead a team on to, in a sense, they're a step ahead of the game, just like Coach Rod. Where I was talking about the spread offense. He kind of was, Rasheed was running with what they kind of doing now. So. Right. Some coaches is just ahead of the game a little bit, and that's, I think, kind of help for their success.
What's your best Coach Neyland story?
It was a lot of them, but I would have to say, it was so many of them. You know what I mean? The thing about it, I think, you don't realize a guy's impact on your life until years later you look back on it. And, Coach Neyland, I think to take a program, not saying we didn't have good players, but I guess once he got here and to take the program from one step to another or one level to another, I think that's speak more than anything, to be honest.
We talk a little bit about reflecting, and we've been talking a lot about your career. When you get the call that you're going into the College Football Hall of Fame, what's that like? There's been a lot of guys that have played in national championship games, and there's been a lot of guys that have done this, and this, but not a lot of guys that have made it to Indiana. Can you talk about your induction and tell us about what it was like for you?
Well, you never expected. Like, I guess some guys expected. If you, for instance, if you're a guy that played pro ball, like, say, Emmitt Smith, for instance, then in a sense you would think that your pro career can help you as far as getting in the College Football Hall of Fame. But when you really don't have a pro career, you know what I mean, then in a sense it's really shocking, you know what I mean? Like, man, you know what I mean? And it makes you reflect on maybe I was pretty good in college, you know what I mean? And I think it's good when they have awards, especially for guys that's retired and stuff like that, because in a sense it makes you appreciate what you what you did or what you done as far as on the team. So I think that it was probably a little bit sweeter for me than probably a guy like Emmitt Smith and stuff like that, because in a sense he's probably thinking more of NFL Hall of Fame, you know what I mean? So, you know, yeah, it was definitely shocking, you know what I mean? But it was I always say it was like the icing on the cake for my career, you know what I mean, to get inducted.
Talk about the trip out there. I mean, you know, you get the call and you get to go. I mean, just kind of walk us through what that weekend is like.
Well, you know, it's funny because you go up there now, you meeting guys that's inducted with you. Y'all go out to eat. Hey man, could you buy my dinner? I mean, you up there and think about it. A lot of these guys are millionaires. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And
you know, you up there hanging out with them, and you know, and you watching them on TV. You know, you playing, now, like me, I'm betting on games. So these are guys I probably was mad at. You know what I mean? Probably fumbled or did something, you know what I mean? But no, it was a good experience. It definitely was a good experience. I enjoyed it. And it's just funny because a lot of the guys, it's like they real down to earth, you know what I mean? And you know, you see them from another perspective, whereas you might go to a game, they're on the field, but when you get inducted with them, they kind of like look at you as like one of them, so to speak. So it was a hell of an experience for me.
You know, one thing you started talking a little bit about Coach Nehlen, and you kind of started in on it. What do you think? You know, and he's obviously in the Hall of Fame. He talk a little bit more about what he did for the state of West Virginia and West Virginia University as far as the football program, because he didn't get. Like you said, when we were in the tunnel with Notre Dame, we had 5 big guys. They had 20 big guys. So he wasn't able to lure and build, you know, and bring 5 or 6 high school All-Americans in at a time. He took guys that were good and coached them up. And like you said, we had 5 seniors across the front on the offensive line. Can you talk about his ability of just making the most of the guys that he had there and what he did for the football program?
Well, you look at it from this aspect. You take Coach Paterno, all-time winningest coach, Penn State, and you recruiting against those type of guys. You know what I mean? Now, at one time, Pitt was huge. You know what I mean? They had a lot of guys go pro and stuff like that. And to compete on that level, I mean, that's impressive, I'll be honest with you, because, like I said, Joe Paterno, all-time winningest coach. Now, you take Coach Nehlen, he's going into homes where he's competing against Coach Paterno. You know what I mean? I mean, that's huge. I'll be honest with you. And take the program from one level to the next, I mean, that speaks volumes. Now, we sitting here today, to be honest, you know, even though circumstances happen, our program right now, to be honest, is probably on a level that, you know, Penn State, I mean, even though it was some unfortunate things that happened there, and even Pitt, I mean, I think now you go into homes, guys probably want to come to West Virginia before they might want to go to Pitt and Penn State. That might sound crazy, but I think it's the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're sitting here, we've been spending the morning with the College Football Hall of Famer, Major Harris. And once again, just thanks for coming in today. And as always, you know, like I said, you've been coming down and visiting in Charleston, and we've been doing things together for a few years. So it's good to always have you back in Charleston. It's good. I'm glad we got to bring you here to the podcast today.
Great. This might be the best one we've done yet.
So it's good to sit down and talk with you. But we're going to try to wrap the show up a little bit. And first, I wanted to go into we'll go into the last few things here. First, Diddy.
The beer of the week?
Yeah, we'll let you do your thing, man.
Beer of the week goes to, I mean, that game yesterday, the only thing really stands out to me is he almost killed a man again. Carl Joseph wrecking shop on the sideline on that guy after he catches that ball. Carl Joseph just he's going to knock someone out before the year's over. Bottom line.
He also had a pick. He's leading the country.
Yeah, I mean, he played huge on defense. He's knocking people out. I think he's going to, before the season is over, you're going to see a man not get up and get back to his feet, and they're going to hit him with the smelling sauce after Joseph lays wood on him. It's just that hit yesterday was just, and it's not illegal. He just knows how to tackle.
And I still think his steps were a hair off, I think yesterday would have been that knockout shot, but it just seemed like he actually had to take an extra step or something to get to the guy. Although he popped him good, he dropped the ball. I don't know if he would have had just if his steps would have been different and a hair different in his angling. I think that guy's head would have made.
And I'll tell you what, I want to give out the chug of the week too. I'm going to start that. I'm going to give that to Shell. I've been busting that guy's balls all year. He ran hard yesterday. He hit the hole. He looked good.
He looked good.
I think honestly, if we go to Shell and Smallwood a little more yesterday, had we not got behind, we could have played ball control, managed that game a little better. It didn't happen that way. But Russ looked good. He came to play yesterday.
Well, I thought he came to play versus Maryland, and I think you just saw a little bit more. He's definitely running north-south. So he ran for what looked like he ran for 72 yards yesterday, averaged about 3.5 yards a carry.
That's a tough 3.5. Though.
Yeah, they were tough yards yesterday. He definitely ran the ball.
Very limited on his Dance Revolution steps yesterday. He went straight for the hole, and I liked seeing it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I thought much better play out of him yesterday. Well, what we'll do too is while we're wrapping up the show, we'll get into our Bear Wood Company Fan of the Week. Mr. Josh Dotson sent in, and you'll see it on the Facebook page here this afternoon. It'll pop up. And I don't know if you guys checked the email or not. Him and one of his buddies were literally like deep sea diving, and he's sending this picture. They're like got this flag, a West Virginia flag.
It gets no better than that.
Underwater.
You're out lobster fishing and
no, diving.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, you can dive for lobsters.
Hey, we're everywhere, guys.
Even underwater. So, and let's do this before we wrap up the show. Next week, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, 7 o'clock, under the lights in Morgantown. I figure my blood alcohol content will be up for that one. So let's get into some predictions. And what do you guys?
Crowd will be juiced.
Yeah.
You got to hope the team doesn't have a carryover. Sometimes you carry a hangover in. I don't know why they carry a hangover in. That's a really good Oklahoma team that they lost to yesterday. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of losing in Norman. Like I said, they were in the game. You got a few missed opportunities with some missed passes. The unfortunate presence of Mr. Stryker. I think I watched the Oklahoma State game yesterday. They don't look that great, but man, they got some big boys at receiver.
Yeah.
There was one series they had where they just picked on Burns from K-State. I felt bad for him. They just went at him 3 straight times, and what they did, they'd complete it to one guy, they'd switch, and they'd go right, just move receivers over onto him, and they just lit him up. I mean, they were just high pointing him and throwing it up and go get it. And I think our corners rebound next week with a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to give us the edge. We'll go, let's go 27-24. I think we'll win it with a field goal.
I think Dana has Mike Gundy's number. I think we'll win 42-31. I think the defense is going to bounce back. This is a veteran crew back in the secondary, and they had a few missed assignments. But I think everything we messed up yesterday is correctable, and I look for us to bounce back. I was going to ask Major, how do you bounce back? How does the coach and how does the quarterback bounce back from obviously a disappointing game? What do they need to do this week just to get back on track?
Well, I think the one thing that, going into the season, you want to go undefeated. And when you lose that first game, it's hard because now your goals might change for the year. You might go from playing for the national championship to let's try to win 10 games or 9 games. So I think now that we got that pressure off, it might sound crazy. Now that we got the pressure off us not going undefeated, I think now we might play better. I'll be honest with you.
What do you think for next week? What are you looking at?
Well, I'm looking. I think we're a work in progress, and I think that if we go in there and we score early on them, I think the momentum can build, and I think we can beat them.
What's your prediction, Crum? What's
your
score?
42-31.
Okay.
I think Holgerson has Gundy's number.
Yeah,
I don't think Gundy's that great of a coach. Personally.
No, I like us. I think Dana continues the streak next week. I look for West Virginia to win. I like us 31-21. And actually, I think when they get to 21, I think that's going to be a garbage touchdown towards the end. I think we'll be up on them, and probably 31-14. They might get something late.
Got to win this one, though.
Yep,
you have to win this game.
So I'm the only one here who thinks it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, well, I mean
shit. All right,
I like it. Well, that's it for this week's show. And if you guys are out and about in Morgantown next week, enjoy the weekend. And And thanks for tuning in this week. And thank you once again, Major Harris, for coming in and joining us here on the Section 304 podcast.
The producer for Section 304 is Steve Adams for SAA Productions. SAA Productions specializes in affordable, small-scale audio and video projects. Wanting to jump on the podcast bandwagon? Call 304-299-1234. That's 304-299-1234. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter.